We're in the second part of a series. Good to have all of you today. Welcome in the name of Christ. We're in a series called Awaken Love, and it's a relationship series, but it's not the Instagram style of everything looks perfect. We're going to talk about what do you do with conflict. So the whole series is built around dealing with conflict. Last week, we said, basically to sum it up, that you know what? When you delight in the Lord first, He gives you the desires of your heart. And a lot of times we forget to do that. And what we do, hang on, is that we delight in the other person. And then guess what? When you delight in anyone else other than the Lord first, everything else becomes counterfeit. And that's what typically leads us to be upset, disappointed, discouraged, and all of these other D's that I mentioned last week that were kind of a challenge for us. So if you didn't see that one, go to the archive and check it out because I feel like it was a good start. Today we're going to talk about how to fight fair. And if anyone knows how, you come on up and let me know. But we're going to look at a wonderful biblical example today. I'm not kidding. And some of you have read it. I suspect the majority of you have never read this story about a conflict and what we can learn from it today. Let's pray. God, speak now. Open our hearts to the reality of your word. And in this time together, in these moments together, let your word come alive within us. In the name of Christ our Lord, amen. I want to thank our tech crew too. They're up there trying hard to keep us going and surviving today. So I want to thank all of you as well. All right, I feel real good about a 55, 65-minute sermon. So okay, no, I don't. Okay. I want to talk, first of all, and I want you to say the very first word that we need to deal with is conflict. Now, the basic reality and the basic premise comes from James. James, the half-brother of Jesus, writes this great letter. And in this letter, chapter 4, he says, what causes quarrels and fights among you? And every man said, a woman. And every woman said, a man. So that's not what James meant. He says, what causes quarrels and fights among you? And then he answered it. He said, it comes from your own desires. It comes from your own basic desires of, wanting what I want when I want it, and it can lead to conflict. So the basic reality is, whenever you put two people in the same room, for a period of time, a conflict will come at some point. It will. It's only natural that conflicts come to every one of us. So we're not going to Instagram this talk. We're going to keep the honest conversation going. And one of the best stories I've ever read in the Bible about conflicts today in 2 Samuel in the Old Testament. So I told some of you this last year, and you'll remember it, but a lot of you may be new to the church. Last year, one of the special moments is we went to Disney World, and my son Trey and Abby, they got engaged at Disney World. And it was really fun and cute. It was a special moment. And then we got to stay there for a few days. And while we were staying there, one of the days we went to Epcot. I love Epcot because I love all those countries and I love all the food in them. Anybody else? It's kind of like you want the food, right? I mean, if you don't go to every country and eat something, you got a problem. And before we went into the countries though, we all were hungry. So we all said, let's stop and get a hamburger before we go into the countries and eat all their food. Isn't that a great idea? So that's what we did. So most of you remember, some of you remember this, but this really did happen, but I have to remind you. So we go and we stop at one of those, where those big bulbs are or whatever, and we stopped at one of those little restaurants and, we ordered our hamburgers. We're all sitting down. We're enjoying our time together, and really, we're just having a great day. And I go back to get a drink. And this actually happened because God just loves to put that on me. And I was going to get my drink, my Coke or whatever, you can get your own. And two women walked up, if you remember this story. Two women walked up. They were probably my age. And one did not look as happy as the other. And honestly, she looked really mad. And I don't know, how they tell you, Disney is the most wonderful place. That's usually the first day. And then the second, third, fourth day, it's the most... Anyway, wonderful time to argue with one another. And so they apparently had enough. Something was going on. So these two women, they just come right up to just getting my drink, at the fountain. And they come right up. And this lady looks mad. And the other lady is talking to her. And I told you, but I want to remind, this is what she said. The one lady that didn't look angry said to the one that looked really angry, she said, I'll never forget it. She said, you can't kill him now. And I took like a step back, and she said, you can't kill him now. Then she added, you need a ride home. You think I'm not kidding. I can't make this stuff up. And I did. I'm like, that is the best thing. I'm going to use that for all my sermons of the future. Because, isn't that a classic line? She leans over, you can't kill him now. You need a ride home. So just, but conflict comes to all of us. Now, today we're going to look at a story. And it's a story of King David. And he's actually not king yet, but he's about to become king. And his first wife, the first of many, and her name is Michal. Isn't that an interesting name? Some of you might want to say it's McCall, but no, it's Michal, okay? And we want to look at this today. You may not know this, but kind of stay with me. Michal is one of the daughters of King Saul, all right? David is the young warrior, and David is gaining in popularity. And he defeats a ton of Philistines. And I mean, his power, he's good looking apparently. All of these things are coming together. And Michal is very attracted to him. And you can read it in I think 1 Samuel chapter 18. They really have a connection. They desire each other. They love each other. I mean, so I want you to know this thing didn't start badly. I want you to know that their lives seemed like they really were attracted, desire, loved each other. And you could read that in 1 Samuel 18. Matter of fact, when Saul, do you guys remember Saul went crazy? King Saul decided that David had to go. He wanted David dead. And if you remember that, David finds out because Michal and then Jonathan, they let him know that, hey, Saul's going to kill you. Michal defends him, deceives her father so that he can get away. Now, I don't know if you know the rest of the story, but David has to go on the run. And David goes into the desert. He lives in caves. And at this point, the two of them are in love. And they've been in love. But here's what happens. David's been gone a while. He's been gone a while. And guys, ladies, they can only love you so long. And then Michal marries somebody else. She does. That woman. She marries another guy in the kingdom that she thinks has a lot of potential for prominence in the structure of the kingdom. I'm not making this up. I can tell you her story. And she's got some issues. She's got some power issues. She's got some ambition going on. And so she marries somebody in the kingdom because David's been gone a while. It's like, hey, out of sight, out of mind. I don't know. And so she's kind of like, life has gone on for her. David's on the run. He's been gone for a long, long time. And then Saul dies. Saul dies. David is coming back. And David, will be the one, this one true king for the people of Israel. But David returns, and you may not know this, but when he returns, he's got 30,000 soldiers now. Big, strong, powerful, unbelievable. And the first order was for him, I want Michal back. So the king says, you're coming back to me. And she does. It's the king. You don't mess with the king. So Michal then, they are married and they're together now. And I'm giving you a little bit of the basis. Then the next thing that David wanted to do, if you don't remember the story, David wants to bring the Ark of the Covenant back home. That means to Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant is where you put the big 10 in, the 10 Commandments. And also, everyone believed that the presence of God was in the Ark. So David, now make sure this is important. David brings back the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. Folks, they've been waiting 400 years for this. David is the one that will bring it back to Jerusalem. And I mean, the city streets are packed with thousands of people going crazy. And David leads the charge. He leads the charge. And I want you to see what happens in 2 Samuel 6:14. Are you ready? Wearing a linen ephod, you can Google that when you have time, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might. Now, we're talking about bigger than when you're happy when your favorite football team wins. And you're doing this, and you're doing whatever you do, and you're high-fiving people you don't know, and all that kind of thing. We're talking a lot more than... Now, if you don't know what a linen ephod is, I want you to picture this in your mind. You ready? He's wearing underoos. Can you picture that? You think I'm making that up? You can Google it. And it's an undergarment, and what happens is, have you ever seen men? I love men at weddings. You ever go to a wedding, and then the reception, and there's a band playing, and all the men think they got it, you know? You ever seen it? Men think they've got it, you know, and other men like me, we stand over in the corner like we don't have it, but we're gonna take some pictures of this, you know? But you know, so men are out there thinking they got it, and then men, boy, they start loosening up because they've had 1 or 2 Diet Cokes, and then the men take off their jacket. They take off their jacket like, get ready. We're about to break this down. And I always want to tell every man, no, it's sad, don't do it, it's embarrassing. But anyway, that's what David does. David is so excited entering Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant is brought back after 400 years. And here he is dancing. And the king takes off his outer garments. He is in the moment. He takes off his outer garments, and now he takes off and all of a sudden he's got this underoos on, and he's dancing. The Bible tells you, he is dancing with all his might. And what we're about to see is how his wife will respond to this. Now, this isn't about marriage. What we talk about today, you can use at work, you can use with your siblings, you can use with your parents or your children. What we talk about today will benefit us all, but you have to see it in the context of this story. So the first thing that I want you to note today is this. You deal with conflict quickly, but you deal with it kindly. One of the things that we need to learn is, a lot of us, we love to deal with conflict right up front, and that's great, but we're not always kind about it. So I want you to understand that really makes a huge difference. Now, let me read you the story, and I want you to, if you're willing, hang on tight, because this is so good. All right, so as the Ark of the Lord is entering the city of David, Jerusalem, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. She's married to David. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was not very happy, as only a wife could be, which makes sense. Verse 17. They brought the Ark of the Lord. They set it in its place. So what I want you to understand is, David now, make sure you get this, he does everything he's supposed to do to honor the Lord. He brings it in, he pitches the tent, they bring the ark there, they sacrifice offerings, fellowship offerings being peace offerings, trying to create harmony, because he's not going to have any harmony coming up. Verse 18. After he'd finished sacrificing burnt offerings and the fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. It's a beautiful thing. Now look at verse 19. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites. Good gracious alive. He's given out food. Both men and women, and all the people went to their homes basically happy. Now, verse 20. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "Oh, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of all the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would." Only a wife, only a husband in this moment. But I want you to think about the conflict. You got to picture it this way, just so you can wrap your brain around it, okay? Picture tomorrow night your favorite team wins the national championship, okay? Some of us, I know, but just go ahead and picture that. Your favorite team wins. I'm not even going to say which team, okay? You picture the favorite team. And, there is a big parade in that particular town, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people show up for the parade. And here comes the football team with their trophy marching down the main, road. Everybody's screaming, and the head coach, I won't name him, is walking at the front. And I want you to picture in your mind that as the parade builds with enthusiasm, the coach starts dancing. Because I don't know that I could picture that. Can y'all? And he starts dancing or whichever, and all of a sudden, he's doing all of his moves, and then he does the unthinkable. He takes off his shirt. Yeah, you can't picture it, can you? No, I can't either. Picture it. Takes off his shirt, then he takes off his slacks. And everybody's like, ooh, gone too far, gone too far. And he's still dancing, and he's got his underoos on, and everybody's like, oh my goodness. Like, no, and he's having the time of his life. All right, well, this is your scene. I want you to really picture this, if you will, because what happens is you have to understand there's a reality here. Let's make sure we understand. What Michael does at first is really good. And every female in here should hear that compliment, and I mean it, and every male. She immediately wants to talk about the conflict, but here's the problem. So that's the positive. Here's the negative. It's sarcasm, and it's hateful, and it's cynical, and it's judgmental. And so let me just tell you, dealing with a conflict on the front side is great, but if it has any of those 3 or 4 qualities, you're not going to get anything accomplished. I mean, you can do this at work, anywhere. You're not going to get much accomplished because it's now started with something other than kindness. So the first rule that none of us we know it, but we don't live it, so let's remind ourselves. The first rule of a conflict is, here it is, be nice. Most of you don't agree, I see. Be nice. Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you, not just when everything goes perfectly. Love one another when things aren't going well. Be kind to other people, even when it doesn't seem the way it should be. Now, I believe, as you do, or most of you do, I think certainly our spouse should be the first one to say, you're not really dressed appropriately. Underoos are not appropriate out on Main Street. Okay, I think that's a good thing for the spouse. But what you might miss in this incredible story that's so honest and so real is that what she wanted to do was deal with the conflict, but the attitude, it said, she despised him in her heart from then on. So in this moment, she carries so much angst and resentment. So rather than say, you know what, I'm so proud that you brought the Ark of the Covenant back. No one's done this in 400 years. I'm so glad you took out Goliath. Your history is amazing, David. Now, all I ask, David, is that you help me understand the dancing with the ephod. Can you just help me understand? At some point, then that could come up rather than, you know what? You made us all look like an idiot today, and I really want to thank you for that. Don't you see how well that goes over? Everybody wants to, then all of a sudden what? Well, oh yeah. Paul put it this way in Ephesians 4. He says these words, in your anger, don't sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Now, I want you to keep that right there because most of us know this, and there are 2 things that are being said. The first thing that Paul is saying is, it is possible to get angry and not sin. It is. And basically what we all know is this. Jesus is the model, and Jesus did get angry. He got angry a number of times. He was irritated with the disciples sometimes when they didn't understand. He told one of them, get behind me, Satan. That was not a compliment. He turns over the tables of the temple, and I want you to know he had slept on it the night before. So here's the thing that Jesus did with anger that you and I could learn from, that I really could learn from. He was very intentional and careful and purposeful with his anger. That's a big difference for some of us because we're not purposeful. When we're angry, we want to do something about it and we want someone to pay. So here's the question I want to ask you on the first side of this text. What makes you angry? Now, before you write out your whole list, or if they're sitting next to you, what makes you angry or who makes you angry? How about this? When you think about what makes you angry right now, does it make Jesus angry? Wow, this is a far better question. So when you're in the place of anger, I want you to really ask yourself this question. Does it also make Jesus angry? Because what if you're angry about something and then you put it in the context of Christ and you're going, I don't think he'd be angry about that. All right, so he says, in your anger, don't sin. Be the model of Christ. But here's the other thing. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry. I love this because you know what? A lot of you in this room, this is where everybody goes, oh man, we do this in our house. we never go to bed angry, and you haven't been asleep for 4 weeks. And I want to encourage you to maybe get some sleep because you're going to say something bad. But, I think that's beautiful that you take this literally. But I find it so fascinating that then I talk about the tithe and you're like, that's not literal. Or I talk about loving your enemies. That's not literal. But when it comes to going to sleep, I'll correct everything because it's in the Word of God. I'm like, you're crazy, and I'm very vindictive when I say that. But this is a very interesting. So do not let the sun go down while you're angry. Some of us, we we try to take that literally, but when you go to sleep at night, you're at the two opposite corners of the bed. And you don't even have the same zip code anymore. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten. No, you don't have the same zip code. But it kind of goes all the way up. But here's the thing. Here's what we probably should do. Let's get real honest. There's going to come a day when you can't get over the hump with a certain conflict. I've experienced it. Mara will tell you we've experienced it. And I know some of you, and you've experienced. You can't get over the hump, but you try to just act like you're over the hump. No, this is what we do. We say, you know what, I don't really like you right now. And I know you don't really care for me right now. So let's make a promise that we'll go to lunch this week and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to continue the conversation and we're going to move forward. Do you see what you've done? You've at least created an opportunity to say, this is not over. Can we go to, I know you don't like me and I don't like you right now, but we're committed. Listen, we're committed in love. We're grounded in forgiveness. So let's just make a promise. We're going to go to lunch, okay? And we're going to continue the conversation. Because listen, there will come a day if you try to act